So I'm an atheist. I had a discussion online not too long ago, and it was a point that I sort of came up with, but hadn't really ever heard. And when I brought it up, I kind of just got, wow, that was a really good point. And then they deleted the post, so I didn't really get much out of it. But the idea was that what if God told you something and you needed to know for sure that it was him, or if you needed clarification because we lack his wisdom. How do you know it's him and not your own mind or a demon or something like that? Sure. So the answer that this person came up provided was, if you're ever unsure, it was to go to the Bible. I feel like this creates such major problems. And, it's really just a solution that creates more problems because on the one hand, you have, you really just have two sources. I mean, you've got the omnipotent God who knows everything, and then you've got the Bible that is, supposed to be the unerring word of God, but it's also finite. And I've just never heard anything. I don't know if you've ever heard this sort of argument or heard anyone ever try and resolve it this way before.
It's not a resolution, and yes, we've heard it before. It's a circular argument. They're presuming that there is a God who wrote or inspired the Bible, and that the Bible now becomes the standard by which you judge stuff. Well, why not the Quran? Why not the Hadith? Pick something else. What makes you think that this is the standard by which you should judge that? Meanwhile, it also sets up a scenario where anybody who thinks they got a message from God and they can point to something in the Bible, you have to consider they're right. And if that were the case, then we wouldn't have over 1,000 denominations of Christianity right now. Sure. We wouldn't have Catholics and Protestants.
30,000 in the U.S. alone.
Yeah. You wouldn't have the First Baptist Church and the Second Baptist Church, both of whom claim to be getting message from God, both of them pointing to the same book and coming to different interpretations. If anything, this is evidence against the notion that there's a God, because if there's a God who's all-powerful, all-knowing, et cetera, like that, he couldn't possibly be stupid enough to reveal a message to a band of warmongering goat herders and never update it and then allow all this confusion to go around. It's funny because there's a passage in the Bible that says God is not the author of confusion. The Bible is confusion, therefore God is not the author of the Bible. I mean, you can do that shit all day long.
Yeah, sure. I've also heard, that if you don't know what to do when you're reading the Bible, if you are unsure or you're confused, to then listen to God to provide you.
It's a Rorschach test. Sure. Jeff D calls it the big book of multiple choice. You can interpret it any way you want. It's wisps of stories that really have little points sometimes, and you can read into it whatever you want, and so you can delude yourself into thinking anything you want this way, with this methodology.
It's not an attempt. It barely qualifies as an attempt of solving the problem. If you look at like John Loftus's stuff about the outsider test for faith, this notion of if I knew nothing about your religion, how would you convince me that it's true? It can't possibly pass. This gets to the same thing about the supernatural. There is no methodology or no demonstration of methodology by which you could do that. And so you're right. If you think you're getting message from God, not only can I not tell whether you're getting messages from God or merely making stuff up on your own, I can never tell that. I mean, this gets right back to one of my favorite quotes from David Hume, which is revelation is necessarily first person, and to everybody else it's hearsay. So I can't tell, I don't know whether or not you're telling me the truth about what you think God told you. I certainly can't tell whether or not a God told you. But the problem is worse because you also can't tell.
Yeah, and I've continually tried. I was writing pages at one point trying to work this out from both perspectives to see if I could somehow get to something, and the fact that, the two can compete, can God, make a book so perfect that he cannot refute or change it.
And this is something I almost said in the last call, but we got so distracted that I didn't. How do you tell the difference between someone whose spirit left their body, had an experience, came back and relays that to you, and someone who merely thinks that their spirit left their body and then relays that to you. How do you tell the difference between those two? This is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there are ways to tell, you know, if a phone's ringing in the room, there are ways to tell which phone's ringing. You know, it's not the fault or problem of science or even philosophical materialism that people who are making supernatural claims cannot demonstrate the truth of their proposition. The fact that there are unfalsifiable propositions being made doesn't mean there's a problem with the notion of falsification.
Absolutely.
My advice to you is to go back to basics. You know, this conversation doesn't even make sense until the concept of a God or the existence of a God is proven. And you know, if you're conceding that, then you're conceding way too much.
And I definitely agree with you. And that is generally the stance I take. I just enjoy trying to learn more about how to debate and how to,
Sure.
you know, deal
It's
with
an
these
exercise.
questions.
So yeah, if you had a purpose like that, then that's fine.
Yeah. So that was really it. Before I go, I think I might have an answer to the idea of design, that you were talking about, the failure of Christianity before, which I love, by the way. I love those every time I hear them. I think what happened is that we are all debuggers in sort of a beta that was put out, and the first issue was that they forgot to tell us what our job was when they sent us down here.
That's pretty funny. It's especially funny because Matt used to be a quality tester.
Oh.
We're finding all the bugs. I love it.
So I love it if it ends up being like a scavenger hunt, and you know, it turns out that the person that found the most things wrong, you know, gets a prize at the end. I don't know, but I just thought that was really funny. I appreciate you guys giving me time today.
Thanks for the laugh,
Yeah.
man.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Oh, I love that.
I used to, well, I'm not going to go down this road for very long, but I used to talk about how it kind of bugged me that being in the notion of software QA and stuff, you kind of think you're constantly in a negative headspace, and then you're doing debates and stuff, or I am outside here, and I think I'm in a negative headspace because you know, it's always finding the faults with everything. Mm-hmm. And then I had this epiphany one day that the only way you can find the faults is if you know what it looks like when it's supposed to be working. And so it's not a negative headspace. It's a positive headspace with a positive goal, which is to make a better project. It's actually Don's job that is the problem.
Yeah, I write the bugs.
The software engineers are the ones that put the bugs in there.
Yeah, I keep getting told if I just stopped doing that, we wouldn't have so many problems.
On the other hand, it was job security, so I was happy for them to keep putting bugs in there.